So good afternoon, students. We're in week 6. Congratulations on making it halfway through the class. So for this week, week 6, all you have to do is do 3 different assignments. So for the week 6 forum, you're going to be going over the revision sheet. On the revision sheet, it goes over many different ways in which you can correct your essay and proofread your essay. So when we are at the third stage of the writing process, and that is the rewriting section. And in the rewriting section, we're correcting the mistakes of our rough draft. So then this week in the forum, I gave you a revision sheet that goes over the different ways in which you can correct your paper. You've got reverse outlining, glossing, scissors technique, and so you can read the revision worksheet and then you decide for yourself which one of these revision techniques works for you. Which one is your favorite? And so up till now, the print aloud, read aloud one is the one that's the most popular. People like to print out their paper and then read it aloud. And then when you read it aloud, you can hear the mistakes that you've made. Other people like to use the scissors technique where you cut out the different paragraphs in order to make sure that all your paragraphs have the same amount of sentences and all have 5 to 7 sentences. And some students like to use the zoom way out, in which you zoom in on your paper and you can see 2 pages at the same time. And as you look at the 2 pages at the same time, then you could tell that your paragraphs are of the same length. I prefer the reverse outlining one because then what you do when you reverse outlining is you look at your rough draft, and from your rough draft you pick out where your thesis statement is, you pick out where your background sentences, your hook, your body paragraphs, and you reverse the rough draft back into an outline. So if your rough draft is able to go back to that outline and make sense, then you know that you have a good essay structure. And so reverse outlining is an excellent way for you to correct your essay. In other words, you go in reverse from rough draft to outline. And when you read any magazine articles and any newspaper articles, you can reverse outline those articles to make sure that those articles are credible. When you want to make sure that it has a thesis statement, and then it has a thesis statement with body paragraphs that illustrate that thesis statement. And so that's how you do logos, appeal to logic. And so that's one way in which you can correct your paper. Other people also like glossing, where you read your paper backwards and then you can hear the mistakes. I've never tried using glossing myself, but a lot of students swear by it. And then another one is specific focus. In other words, you look at one grammar mistake at a time. And for instance, first you correct for subject-verb agreement, or you correct for any other grammar mistake. So for week 6 forum, pretty much you just answer which is your favorite revision technique and which technique you like the best. And then for your week 6 final draft, after you've looked over the week 5 forum and you've looked over all the mistakes and the feedback that you got from me and from all the other students, and you incorporate that into your final draft. So that is your week 6 final draft. And I know I said all of this last week also. And then your midterm exam. So for your midterm exam, the only way you can really foolproof study for your test and make sure that every single answer to the questions are correct is you have to use index cards. You have to write down every single definition that you read in the textbook, write it down word per word as the textbook has it. Then you write it on the index card, memorize it, so that way when the questions arise on your test, then you know the answer to that definition. So there is no, even the study guide might not be accurately correct. Okay, so don't count on the study guide for 100% accuracy. The study guide is simply for you to get a way to learn what your test questions will look like. And then the only way to get the answers correct is simply to study the textbook, memorize the definitions, write down each and every definition on a index card. And you have to write it word per word as the textbook has it. You could also study using the flashcards that are in the textbook. That's the only way you can study for the test. You can't even use AI for this because AI might give a slightly different definition, or AI could also give a slightly different answer. So you have to go, so you can't go by other text. You have to go only by what's written in your textbook. And so that's why for your midterm test and for your final, you simply have to read the textbook and then write all the definitions and the grammar rules down on index cards, memorize the index cards, memorize the rules, and then take the test. That's it. So all the study guide does is just show you what the test questions may look like, but it may not give, there are no answers because the textbook does not have study guides. The textbook does not provide study guides. It only provides the chapters that you have to study for. It only provides the grammar rules that you have to memorize. So basically, you just have to write it down, take notes, and then study. And that's how you succeed on your midterm and final exam, is simply to study the notes, take down notes, and memorize the grammar rules written exactly as the textbook has it. So that's your midterm exam. And then for your week 7, you have a week 7 forum where we're going to be starting the comparison contrast essay. And so you're going to pre-write and write what your topic for your comparison contrast essay will be. And so that's your week 7 forum. Choose a topic, and then they actually give you a list of what you want to write, of what you can write about, and then you just choose from that list. And I will also give you additional topics that you can choose from for your comparison contrast essay. And so for your comparison contrast essay, you just have to compare two things. And so you can compare any two things and then write about which one you like better. So for example, you would say New York is a better place to live than Los Angeles because reason 1, reason 2, reason 3. Or Los Angeles is a better place to live than New York because reason 1, reason 2, reason 3. And there's a whole list of topics you could choose from. So basically, it's going to be the pre-writing section of your writing process for essay 2. So essay 1 was your narrative essay, and then essay 2 is the comparison contrast essay where you're going to choose which one you like better than the other. And my students tell me that the week 7 forum is fun. It's the most fun for them. And then that's going to be pre-writing. And then your writing warm-up, all you have to do, no matter what the suggestions they give you, I would say that out of this entire class, the writing warm-ups are the easiest assignments because I just give you an automatic 100% for whatever you write within 5 minutes. So that's the one fun assignment that's easy to do, unlike the tests in which I wrote the study guides. So if you're having any trouble, you can always email me at any time. So before I end this video, I want to go over more about comparison contrast essay. So in a comparison contrast essay, you just compare two things, two similar things. You can compare two musicians, two fruits, two vegetables, 2 times of your life, like childhood versus adulthood, and then you tell me which one you like better and why. So you would say something like, childhood is better than adulthood because. And then there are 2 kinds of thesis statements. You've got an explanatory thesis statement and an evaluation thesis statement. And so in an explanatory thesis statement for your comparison contrast essay, you use an explanatory thesis statement is when you want to explain two very difficult, controversial topics. So if I want to say that COVID-19 is not the same thing as the flu, that is, and people don't know the difference between COVID-19 and the flu, then that's where you write a comparison, straight comparison, saying, well, COVID-19 is more like a cold that's similar to is a virus, and et cetera, et cetera. And then whereas the flu is not a cold, it's some kind of bacterial, blah, blah, blah. So when it's about a subject that's complicated and technical, that's when we use an explanatory thesis statement. When we use an evaluative thesis statement and we want to compare two things, that's when we tell people which one is better than the other. So with very simple topics like adulthood versus childhood, for instance, well, if you just simply write down a comparison of adulthood is when everybody grows up and everyone has responsibilities, they have to take care of their family and pay bills. Everybody knows that because everybody is an adult. Childhood is a time when you just play games and your parents do all the work for you. And if that's all you write on your essay, then you have a very boring essay because everyone knows what childhood is. Everyone knows what adulthood is. You don't need to explain it because that's so obvious. So when you have a simple topic like childhood versus adulthood, then you write which one you like better. Why is that important? Well, nobody knows your life story better than you. Therefore, what would interest the reader is not knowing the difference between childhood and adulthood. What would make your paper interesting for the reader is knowing your life story and why in your life story, adulthood is better than childhood or childhood is better than adulthood. You would say that when I grew up in New York or when I grew up in Jamaica, when I grew up in France, childhood, this is what we did in France, this is what we did in New York. And so basically, when you use the evaluatory thesis statement for simple topics, you're focusing on your life story, your experiences. And it's your experiences then that makes the essay worth reading for the reader. You only use explanatory thesis statements. In other words, you make a straight comparison between the two things only if you have a difficult topic, such as COVID-19 versus the flu, or simply bacterial infection versus viral infection. So not many people outside of the medical field would know the difference. And therefore, you would have to make a straight comparison. You would say, well, when you have a viral infection, then you would write that in one paragraph. And then you would say, on the other hand, when you have a bacterial infection, you use antibiotics. And so when you have a difficult topic, that's when you use the explanatory thesis statement and you make a direct comparison for your comparison contrast essay. So I want to make that clear so that students are not just simply writing about adulthood versus childhood. And also I posted in the announcements the most common mistakes for the week 3 quiz, the most common mistakes for the week 5 quiz, and I will eventually also do the most common mistakes for the midterm so that you can study for your final. So I want you to study those documents because those documents contain what everybody got wrong. And usually it's when the questions is what everybody got wrong, those are the questions that were that need the most studying. And so that's that and also those were the questions that were probably the most vague and that the test makers made. So I have to regrade the tests for that reason. So study all the documents that I give you in the announcements in regards to your test and quizzes. And also you can study the glossary as well. That is what I provide in the announcements. But like I told you before, the best way to study for your tests and quizzes is simply to memorize the grammar rules and then write every definition and grammar rule down on an index card to memorize. And this study skill will work out very well when you start studying your textbooks for your other classes as well. And I think I went over APA. And for your essay 2, unlike essay 1, in essay 1 we focused on essay structure, on learning essay structure. But for essay 2, we're going to focus on not only essay structure, but also APA. So for your essay 2, you will be required to have one APA in-text citation and one APA reference citation. And so you will lose points if you don't have your APA in-text citation and your APA reference citation. So this is for my Fortis students. So if you have any, this whole video is for the Fortis students because you're going into week 6 and 7. So I just pretty much covered the week 6 and week 7 of your assignments. If you have any questions about your test questions, so that's why I want you to look over the announcements, because that's where I put my latest stuff, okay? If you can learn what the mistakes were for all the test questions, then you can get a better grade on your midterm. So, and if you need to retake your tests, you need to then email me on that. So if you like this video, don't forget to subscribe to the Professor H Writing channel, and you can always email me at any time with questions. So I hope that this helps you go over everything for your week 6 and week 7 assignments. So can you believe it? You guys are halfway through the class, only 6 more weeks. And after this midterm, you have no more tests until the final, which is in week 12. So that's basically it. And I will give you the final exam study guide as well. So the study guide isn't 100% perfect. Neither are the answers 100% perfect. It simply shows you the study guide, that it simply gives you an idea of what your test questions will look like. Anyways, but that's why I said that the foolproof way to study for the test is simply to memorize the textbook, word per word. And you want to use their definition of subject-verb agreement because that's what's on the test. This textbook is very, very strict when it comes to, you got to do it exactly the way the textbook says it in order to get the test questions correct on your test. So if you have any questions, feel free to email me at any time. So have a great week and congratulate yourself that you've made it more than halfway through the class. Oh, and one last thing. For the at-risk students, and you know who you are, next week I will give you your mid-module assessment where I will then delineate all of your missing assignments. Now you can look for your missing assignments yourself by simply pressing on the grades tab. And anytime you see a 0, that's a missing assignment. So you could start looking for your missing assignments right now. So that's it for this week, and I hope you all have a great week. And email me at any time if you need help. And don't forget to subscribe to the Professor H Writing channel.